Welcome to the Active Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Huber. We are here each and every week to interview top real estate investors and bring you tips for your real estate investment career. Today, we are with my good friend, Michael Foodman. Mike has multiple properties in the Los Angeles area, and he's going to help really shed light on how to invest in such a hard and difficult market. So, Mike, how did you get started in real estate investing?
Well, I started in a less hard, less difficult market 5 years, 7 years ago.
Definitely, that helps, right?
Yeah, so that helped a lot. Everything was on its way up, and I caught the train at the right time. So that's the first thing to do, and you can't know to do that.
But wait, are
Um,
you not investing in real estate today still, or are you?
I still am,
Yeah.
but my property today is getting significantly less return than the property that I got before.
Okay, so numbers are a lot harder to get to work with. So we'll get to
Yeah.
that property in a second, but let's start with your first property. Like let's talk about like how did you even before that? Like how did you even realize real estate investing was a thing? What was that?
Well, I wanted to buy my first house, and I was looking at the houses in my budget and for the monthly payment, and realized that if I could buy a duplex or a triplex instead and live in one unit, of course, the rent from the other units would mean that my monthly payment is significantly less. So
Right.
that's what I started looking for, and I was able to find something at a reasonable price because the unit that I moved into was a little bit of a mess and I had to do a remodel. Um, so that was the basic strategy, is find a place for me to live in where the other tenants pay part of the rent, and go from there.
Got it. So you ended up buying a fourplex and then you moved into one of the units. It sounds like you did some remodeling in that unit, and I know you did, of course. I'm your buddy, but tell me what was that like? What was that remodel process like and getting that property up to snuff?
Well, the property was fully tenant occupied when I bought it. So all four units. Um, so I had to go in, and LA allows you to do a move-in eviction. So if you want to move in, there are all sorts of rules that you have to look at. There's certain apartments you can evict to move in, and certain ones you can't. So I studied all those rules very, very carefully, and I looked for a property where I would be allowed to move in to the unit that I wanted to move into.
Got it.
Um, so that was pretty much what I was looking for. And to be able to do that, I was flexible on what kind of place I would live in. Um, so I ended up with kind of a dump, but it was in a cool old Craftsman. And I was excited about the renovation project. I basically was my own contractor, and just hired people. I had some people I knew that could give me good advice, and I basically learned on the job. And as the walls came down, I saw new problems and had to hire some new people and solve those problems, and eventually got it done and did a good chunk of it myself. Ended up buying a bunch of tools, and it was a great experience.
There's so many like nuggets that if you buy a property, you want to move into that property. I think you should have the right to be able to move into that property and live, right? You're trying to live there at the property. So that makes sense. And then, of course, you were your own GC in a lot of ways. And so you had a bunch of advice. Like, who were the people that gave you advice during that time?
I had some friends that were contractors, that I could take pictures of things and run it by them, because the people that I was hiring were basically handyman type people, that didn't necessarily know all the codes. Um, Also did it without permits, and you save a significant amount of money. But you have to be self-contained inside. You can't start tearing down exterior walls so that somebody driving by can see into a giant construction site. Um, but if you're just remodeling like for like the kitchen, you're taking out the sink and putting a new sink in the same place. You can pretty much do that without permits, even though they want you to get permits for that. Now, I did significantly more than that, but I'll just leave it at that. But do what you're comfortable doing.
Right. Hopefully, no one from LA planning and building is watching this podcast or listening to the podcast. I have done the same in past projects. I think it's important to realize, like, in those situations, when you are kind of your own inspector, you kind of know what to look for, right? And so, a lot of times inspectors get the bad rap of not having the best criteria for passing things or not looking at things, but there is opportunity there for you to save money. And really, it's a lot of time that you're saving, honestly. You're saving time, but there is risk involved there when you're doing it yourself without permits, of course, with if someone gets hurt or on the job or someone has an accident of some sort. But of course, you have to take your risks, especially when you're starting out. You got to do what you got to do, and so that all makes sense to me. Let's move on to kind of your next project. I mean, I think many years later, you ended up moving, and the next piece of your real estate puzzle was really looking for a property that had ADU potential. What was that process like?
Yeah. So the second property, I was looking for an actual home with my wife. So that was a different calculus. So we both had to like it. We had to like the neighborhood. I was much less flexible. But since she didn't want us to live in a fourplex, she wanted a house. I said, well, how about we find a house with maybe an extra room or an extra garage or an extra space that I can turn into an apartment and get some of the mortgage back and rent. So that's what we did. And we looked, and it was a long process because we were very specific about what we wanted. But what we found was a house where the basement had been remodeled into a bedroom, bathroom. So we had the full house upstairs, and then there was a basement downstairs, which was an extra bedroom and bathroom. And I said, well, I can just add a kitchen to this. I can cut a hole in the side of the wall for a door, put some steps in, make a new entrance, and this becomes a new apartment. Um, now, this one I did do fully with permits because I could then make it an official apartment because the entire house was a single family home previously. And now it's a single family home with an ADU that gets about almost half the mortgage in rent.
Wow, that's amazing. Certainly like house hacking there for sure. But finding this kind of ADU situation, well, let's first define what does ADU stand for, Mike?
Oh, accessory dwelling unit. So a few years ago, all these laws came out in California and elsewhere allowing you to turn a garage, a room, a rec room, things like that into an apartment. You just have to go through a special permitting process, which is much easier of a process than if you were to build from scratch.
What are the criteria you're looking for on these ADU projects? And I will say, like, you were very cutting edge on this ADU process. I think now, like every listing that you look on the MLS, the real estate agent is called out. This could be an ADU. This could be an ADU. So you were
Yeah.
very cutting edge on that before that all started. But what are the like little pieces, little nuggets that you're looking for in new listings to see if it has ADU potential?
Well, you're right. When I was starting, the ADU's laws were new and they were much stricter than they are now. They've actually gotten much more lenient. So you had to look at, did you have parking? You had to actually, there was a rule that the street had to be a certain width in front of your house. All these little things you had to deal with. They got rid of almost all of those rules. So now the only thing you need to look for is if the room or space that you're trying to turn into an ADU is permitted as a livable space. And to do that, you can look at the building department website, and hopefully your permits are all on the website. If not, you go downtown You make an appointment, you go in there and you look on microfiche, just like just like you did what I did when I was in middle school at the library. And you find all the permits and you make sure that you got a permit for the garage or the rec room or the bedroom that you want to turn into an ADU. And if you do, you're good to go.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even need those permits. I know my ADU project that I did, um, they didn't have any permits for the garage. The garage was just illegally built and shifted over in the area that it is standing now, and they just grandfathered all of that in. So the rules are definitely more lenient today, but
You
it's
got,
good. And
yeah. I'm going to
yeah,
say you got to be careful with that because in your situation, which I
yeah,
know very well, um, your house was permitted as a new construction house and the garage appeared at that same time.
right.
And even though it wasn't specifically in the permit as a garage, you know that it was built and inspected and approved by whoever was coming out and inspecting it. So I
Hmm.
think that's why they let it go,
Right,
because it was just a paperwork issue. They didn't write on the certificate of occupancy plus a 2-car garage.
right. Yeah, yeah.
But if they see a garage that they know isn't supposed to be there and just popped up, they're not going to let you do it.
Of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
And and we
you got
should
a
sit.
little lucky there.
I definitely got lucky.
Yeah.
Definitely, I was nervous there for a little while.
Yeah.
I will say this is not this is for entertainment purposes only. Obviously, we're not permit experts. You should go find out your own information on that permit front, whether you do permits or whether you skate by not getting any permits on your build. You should always be talking to the authorities and getting your best advice yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I will say, I know that it's a little bit more tricky of a time to invest in real estate today. Obviously, the interest rates were topping about 8% recently. What are you doing now? What are you working on now? What's your next project?
Well, I just bought another fourplex, um, but I went to a significantly cheaper area of LA. My first one was in Highland Park, which is now, since I bought that place, it's blown up and it's now prices are through the roof. It's a really hipster kind of neighborhood. I can't really afford to buy in that neighborhood now. So the neighborhood I picked now is called Pico Union. It's just west of downtown. Um, it's lower income area, families. Um, it's uh, it's a historic district of LA. It's actually officially designated a historic district, which means even to paint the house, I need to get special permission to paint it with historically accurate colors, which I did. It took 5 months to get that approved.
Did you get it finally approved?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got it approved in
All
five
right.
months.
All right.
By that time, I just said I'm just not going to paint it. Which you know you go down the street and there's all these beautiful old houses, horribly old paint. It's just too hard to do anything.
Yeah.
So I agree that houses like this have to be preserved, but I also think the best way to preserve them is just let people preserve them on their
Right.
own. They want to
Right.
paint it pink, they paint it pink. It's still it's still an historic house. It's just pink.
Okay. So I think you remodeled that unit as well.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So the reason I bought that place um, is it was also kind of a dump. It's my MO, buy dumps. But that's how it was
Value add
cheaper.
there,
Yeah.
Foodman, right?
But it had a 4-car garage in the back that was empty, as in the tenants were not allowed to park there. And I think the seller was trying to say, hey, look, this can become an ADU. Um, but the fourplex itself was in such bad shape that I still got a pretty good price on it. So I first remodeled the one vacant unit. Now I could have moved in if I was younger and this was my first place. I probably would have moved into that vacant unit, remodeled it, lived there a while. Um, but I remodeled it and I actually turned it from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom by moving the kitchen into the dining room. because in the old days they had these nice big dining rooms, and nowadays in a city like LA, we cram as many bedrooms in as we can. Nobody's renting a one bedroom with a massive dining room and a massive living room. So yeah, so I basically, you can go under the house in the crawl space, move all the plumbing, move all the electric into the other room, put a new kitchen in the dining room, make the old kitchen a bedroom, and rent it out for, 150% of what you could have got if it was a one bedroom.
Right. So you're really forcing appreciation in that, just changing the bedrooms, layouts, making a better use of that space. And so that, I mean, it sounds like a fantastic tip for any young or established real estate investor to go in and modify that space to the highest and best use of that space. So
Oh yeah,
that's
it's the
great.
the first thing I look at in a remodel. If I'm going to do a remodel, can I get an extra bathroom in there? Can I get an extra bedroom in there?
Right.
Anything like that? Can I knock down a wall and make a nice flow area, open floor plan?
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, definitely some nuggets there for the audience. We're at the point now that we're going to close up the interview here, and cognizant of your time, so appreciate the time here. But we do have our questions that we ask each and every interviewer that we
Hmm.
do. Number one, what is your favorite real estate book or investing book?
I have it right here, actually, called The Cult Movie Book.
Call it movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Movie book, movie quotes.
Movie quotes, cult movie quotes.
All right.
I read
Well,
that and I get inspiration.
sounds good. Okay. Number two here. What is your most active real estate tip? Like, what is the biggest tip that you could give to people, to even yourself? Like when you were just getting started, what would you do differently?
Well, I mean, my tip is what I did successfully, which was move in to your first multifamily place. That's my tip. If you move in yourself, you get all the benefits of a lower interest rate, lower insurance costs. Um, you can take your time remodeling your own place to your liking. Yeah,
I think one of the
that's
big
all.
advantages here that you haven't really realized because you haven't sold the property is the enormous tax advantages of moving in to a place like that is. You don't get dinged for all the appreciation when you do sell. So that's great. And
Yeah.
then Mike, how can people contact you or get to know you a little bit better? Give
On the
back to
dark
you.
web. I don't know.
On the dark web.
What are
And I
you
think
talking
you
about?
you reach out to me and then I'll get you in contact to Mike. That's how you do that.
Sounds good.
Awesome, Mike.
uh,
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining the Active Real Estate podcast here. Pretty excited to have you on, and people can reach out to me, and I'll get you in contact to Mike anytime in the future.
all right. Thanks for having me.